So thank you very much for watching this menopause motivation video. So I'm Gabrielle. I think most of you sort of know me. I'll be sharing a little bit more about my story as we go through, but I just want to kick off straight away with talking about menopause and motivation. And that's a topic that's really close to my heart and something that I have been obsessed with for the past 7 or so years because I just recognize that that was something that I genuinely struggled with during my perimenopausal phase. And there are three sticking points when it comes to struggling with making changes. And let's just talk about that for a minute because most women come to me because they are struggling with their weight. And we have a difficult time during perimenopause. There's a lot of reasons that can cause us to gain weight and that can be very distressing. We can have genuine, very strong reasons, health related reasons why we want to change that, but can't seem to make it happen. Okay. And there are three sticking points that I'm going to cover off here. One is just not being able to get started, even though you know you should. Then there's trying really hard and making no progress. And then there's hitting a plateau and not being able to get past it. And I've been in all of these situations. So everything I say is based on my own experience, but also reinforced by the work that I've done with my clients. So, and I've trained hundreds of women since I became a PT 5 years ago, because I only work with peri and postmenopausal women. And what's been fascinating for me is that recognizing that all the struggles that we have, I always thought that it was just me. And I realized that we all share the same thing. So I've just really noticed the issues with me, and then I've been able to spot patterns in the women that I've worked with. And this is what everything I'm going to talk to you to do today is based on. So that's what I want to look at, the motivation issues, the things that stop us from actually getting started, making progress. Then I want to just touch on why a big thing to do with motivation is having the wrong goal. And weight loss, having weight loss as a goal was not enough for me to change. Let's just remember the first thing that we're saying here is that we need to lose weight, but we can't make it happen. So we have to really pay attention to the fact that having weight loss as a goal doesn't motivate us now. And I'm going to share a little bit about how I let that go and what changed for me that made me able to lose weight that I'd just sat there and watched happen, watched go on, not been able to do anything about it, but something changed for me that meant I could actually then suddenly start taking action. And I also want to talk about some of the subtle differences that make the difference between success and failure, because there have been some huge learnings from both my personal journey and with my clients about what we do wrong and what we can change now to do right. I'm going to touch on very briefly about what a menopause plan would be. And it's going to be brief because it is super simple, and that's the good news. Okay. And right at the end, I do have a little special offer, a little free offer for anyone who gets to the end of this and watches this all the way through and gets some value from it. So I'll share that with you when we get there. But let's start about these sticking points that I talked about. So not being able to get started. And the things that I'm going to talk about now sort of tend to crop up for people who either just can't start, or have made some progress, lost a little bit of weight, but just can't get to where they want to be or where they need to be. Now, one big thing that I've never heard anyone talk about is the fact that up until this age, we've known what's been expected of us. We went to school, we went to uni or got a job. Then we got a job if we went to uni, we'd met a partner, maybe two or three. We've bought homes, we've had families, we've moved house, we've done our houses up, we've built our careers. And we get to this point in our lives where we've done all of this, we've got a lot in front of us, and we don't know what to do with it. And things are changing around us. Our kids are getting older. We may be getting a little bit bored of our work, or it doesn't challenge us in the same way, or we're thinking about retirement. So we're starting to feel that things are shifting. Sometimes it feels like things are changing around us and we're not happy about it. And we feel a little bit discombobulated because of all this. And we start to notice this sort of restlessness or this dissatisfaction in our lives. And part of that is to do with menopause symptoms, but there's also a midlife aspect to this where it's a period where things change and we need to change too. And I was in this place for quite a long time. I'm still in it some days where I don't know what I want and what I'm doing. It can be very confusing. And it can be very disconcerting. And you can be stuck in, literally stuck in this life that's still busy, that's still stressful, that's still challenging, but you know you're on the cusp of a lot of things changing in your future, and you want something different, but you don't know what you want. And this can be very difficult to make any decision about your life or make any changes, never mind actually start a diet or exercise program. And what I see that this is a very common phenomenon. Like I say, I very much suffered with it, and I've seen it a lot in my clients. This can be something as well that gives us, that sort of links into having coping strategies around food and alcohol, because we're feeling a little bit unhappy or distracted or stuck or frustrated. We're using food and alcohol to either distract us from those feelings or numb them, okay, or cope with the fact that we feel stuck. Then we have something that I call internal resistance. Now, my perimenopause journey was probably about 7 years, I would say, but there was a 2 year period where my weight just started to go up. Literally, if I look at my MyFitnessPal, it's just a very, very undeniable straight line going up. And I knew this was happening, I could tell, but I couldn't do anything about it. And I was a personal trainer. I had a gym in my garden. I worked with lots of women who had lots of, had health problems, because this can happen when we get older. We get high blood pressure and high cholesterol and things like that. I was even having problems myself with my knees, and I still couldn't find the motivation to do anything about it. And what was happening during this time was I was having a little debate with myself on a loop. Dieting's not the right thing for me now. I can't cope with feeling hungry. I can't cope with the extra work. I don't want to give up the food I like and the lifestyle I have, and then there was a big conflict about, I've been bloody slave to the dieting industry all my life. I'm fed up with it, I'm pressured to be thin, it's a load of rubbish. And, I'm 50 odd, I should just accept my body as it is now, it's going to change. I've spent too much of my life worrying about cellulite, maybe I just have to embrace all these things. And I was on this debate, and which is fine. And at any point in this 2 year debate, I could have said, no, I'm done. I am just gonna eat and drink what I like, do my strength training, and accept my body as it is, and just get on with living my life. And that would have been perfectly fine if I'd done that. Because we always have choices. We always have choices about what the right thing for us is. But for me, that wasn't the right thing. And I had that debate with myself. But really, there was always just what I call mental friction. And that's a sign to me that I'm not clear and I haven't made my mind up. And what happens when we're not clear about what we want or why we want it, we are not going to start doing anything about it. And this can also happen when people get into a point where they've lost some weight. Then they hit a plateau because they have this debate, I've gone far enough, I've lost enough, that's right, I don't need to do anymore, this is fine, I don't want to give this, that, and the other up. I don't want people to notice too much. I don't want to buy a whole new wardrobe of clothes. There can be a whole load of things that are there. But instead of that being the end of it and where we have peace of mind, that debate rages on. And when that debate is raging on, that's a sign that you haven't made your mind up what you want yet. And you have to get to a point where you've made your mind up, or you're not going to start doing anything. Okay. Another thing that can stop us moving forwards and making progress or even starting is a fear of change. Letting go of the habits and attachments of food that we're relying on as a coping strategy can be a big fear. We might not realize that we're using food in that way, but deep down we do. And if we think that to get to the next stage or to lose this weight, we're going to have to eat less cake or drink less alcohol, and we can't really face that, then we're going to talk ourselves out of it. We can also be worried about, if our social lives are very active and we're in book clubs with cheese and wine or wine tasting or lots of meals out, lots of family gatherings, then we can really worry that if we are on a diet, we're not going to be able to join in and enjoy that anymore. Or we might be more worried about upsetting people that we're with or making them feel uncomfortable, or getting attention from those people who are giving us a hard time for not joining in. So that fear of change can be a huge barrier that we have to look at, because especially as women, we can be quite conditioned to be people pleasers and not rock the boat. And sometimes it can just be a fear of getting out of our comfort zone because we know we're going to have to do things that are hard because changing habits is hard, committing to something is hard, and we just might feel like we've not got the capacity, the headspace, the time in our lives, the support in our lives to do that now. So these are things that can really stop us from getting started and also can just derail our progress as well. Now I want to talk about something else, and that's the dieting trap. Now, I like to think of myself very modest here, as a diet expert. I started dieting when I was 13, when after a couple of someone had told me I had Irish legs, and someone else told me I was putting on weight as a child. And so over the years, I've done, and I'm sure we all have this in common where we've tried a few different diets. I've done Weight Watchers, I've done vegan diets, I've done raw vegan diets, vegetarian diets, low carb, high carb, low fat. Remember the Rose McConley diet? I've done weekend detoxes that ended with a kebab, so that wasn't much of a success. I've done intermittent fasting, I've done alternate day fasting. I can't think of anything that I've left out. So and what we've done in that experience is if we've really learned about these quite extreme ways of losing weight. When we get to this age now, we then can start to have a weight problem through various things happening in our lives, our hormones, our cravings, etc. And a lot of these things that we've done in the past stop working for us now. And we go back and we try a diet again. And we start to get really focused and obsessed almost about what we're eating, how many calories we're having. And what we tend to do is to overcomplicate things and make it harder than we need to, okay? Because we think that if we eat less, we'll get faster results. And we also think that there's something to do with bread or sugar or dairy. Now, if we eat it, it's going to mean that whatever we do isn't going to work. So, and we also have this all or nothing mindset that it has to be perfect. Okay. So we end up with this situation where we've got these ridiculous rules or very rigid rules, and we're making things harder than we need to by not eating as much and thinking it has to be perfect, which means that we are setting ourselves up for failure straight away. It feels very hard. Something will happen. We'll be at a birthday party or we'll be in a meeting at work and some rubbish sandwiches come out, and that's our only option. And then we've broken all these rules that are going to ruin the few days that we've had before that are good. That can then spiral into a bit of self-sabotage. And we tend to then get stuck in this loop of then each time we fail, we try and tighten up the rules to make it harder. So we'll think, right, well, I'll not eat breakfast. Or maybe, my diet's not been working for me. Maybe I should give up bread altogether. Or maybe I should go no carb or etc. Okay, and we get into the thing where we're trying to make fewer calories all the time, or like I say, eliminating foods, adding in fasting, getting really obsessed that if I've not eaten enough protein, will this not work? Or maybe we start thinking that it's because we're not taking a certain supplement, and that's going to make the difference. And what happens here? We get to a point where it feels like we are making an enormous effort because all we're thinking about is what tweaks we can make to our diet that's suddenly going to be the magic thing that makes everything easy and makes it all work. But reality of it is we're getting nowhere because we're on it, we're off it, we're changing, we're not consistent. What starts to happen then is we start to think that something is wrong with us, something that's completely out of our control that's going to stop us from losing weight. It might be that we've got our hormones profiles are wrong. We've got a slow metabolism, or there is some food intolerance that we don't know about it. Or there's something just inside us that means it won't work, and we're the unlucky one. And this can be very stressful. And it can absolutely tank our motivation, but we're stuck. We can't walk away because we're scared that if we throw in the towel and let go of all these rules, we'll gain even more weight. So we get trapped in this awful place of trying really hard, feeling like things will never change from us, and getting more and more fed up with it all. So this is a common issue, okay? And I want to talk now a little bit about some of the things that are stopping us from making progress, okay? And what's going wrong. So you've seen some of the things that are killing our motivation, this negative diet loop, this indecision in our mind, being in this transition period, sort of fears that we've not dealt with. These are really important things that we need to reconcile before we can start to get results. But some of the things that people do wrong of these, and it's not eating enough calories, is the big one. I tend to find with people that I work with that women fall into two camps. Either they're on very low calorie, low nutrient diets, or they're grazers and snackers. Okay, I was the 3 meals a day plus millions, millions of snacks sort of person. So so when you're eating not enough calories, you're also not getting enough nutrients from things like protein, from vegetables and fruits and healthy fat. And people can be eating very small meals or skipping meals or combination of both and then relying on snacks to keep them going. But generally, they're eating low calorie diet. And we think that's a good thing because we think that the fewer calories we eat, we'll lose faster. But the problem that we have now, and these are scientifically proven facts, that at this age, not eating enough calories can contribute to weight gain, especially abdominal fat, because it's so stressful for our body. If we're not getting enough nutrients into our diet, it can lead to a scientifically proven state called low energy availability. And the symptoms of this mimic menopause symptoms. So our body needs a certain amount of nutrients to function. But what we're forgetting is we just think what we eat is either going to make us fatter or make us thinner. We think that our body's only doing two things, putting fat down or burning fat. It's not. It's doing an awful lot more. It's regenerating our skin, our hair, our nails, our body, our muscles, our organs, our skeletons. It's keeping our whole nervous system functioning. We forget about all of this and it needs nutrients to do this. And the thing is, when we're not eating enough food or getting enough nutrients from our body, from our food, I should say, our bodies are taking the nutrients by breaking down our muscles and also taking nutrients out of our bones. That's a big problem because our bones are actually a mineral storage site. And if we're not getting certain minerals from our diet, it takes them from our bones, and that's going to make them weaker over time. And the symptoms that we get from this chronic undereating can be low energy, bad sleep, low moods, thinning hair, dry skin, cracking nails, itchy skin. We can find that we get a lot of injuries from when we're working out or we're not recovering well from our workouts. Or when we do work out, it's really hard and we're just tired all the time. The problem is a lot of women in the menopause period or phase, we lose our hunger cues. So we don't feel hungry. So we cannot be eating a lot of food and we can actually exist on these low calorie diets and think we're okay and blame the symptoms on other stuff or just we've been living with those symptoms for so long, we've forgotten that how bad they are and we think it's normal. So we need to be able to break out of this mindset of thinking that less calories is better. And for people who are in this low calorie zone, it can be a very difficult thing to do to start to think, actually, what I need now is to eat more to solve this problem rather than eat less. Then we have snacking. And like I say, this is my this is very much my territory. We're hanging on, we are eating little things all the day or drinking or having heavy weekends food-wise because we need it to cope. My behavior was to do with anxiety or stress or overwhelm. Anytime that I felt uncomfortable or I was struggling with something, I'd head into the kitchen and I probably wouldn't even go an hour without eating. But you kid yourself, because my breakfast was healthy. I ate healthy food. I went to an organic vegetable shop for most of my food, but I was still eating every hour on the hour. And when I decided one day to be really honest about my behavior, instead of kidding myself that I didn't eat much, I added up to around 700 calories of snacks in a day, which I was horrified about. So the snacking can be a real problem here. Now, there are some changes that we can make to our diet, like more protein and more veg, that can massively reduce cravings. But often we have to start to think about how we're going to let go of some of these things. Okay. The odd snack is okay. It's really good tactic actually to build in a snack if whatever you like, chocolate and crisps, and have them once a day, a few times a week. Everyone's different. And that can help you stop feeling deprived. The problem we have is when we're just this constant grazing that we're not really enjoying and we're doing for the wrong reasons. We have to be prepared to let some of these habits go. Other areas where people go wrong is being too strict. So obviously I talked about that a little bit. When we have these very low calorie diets, they can be just really difficult to stick to. And this idea that we have to have perfectly healthy meals, no snacks, no alcohol. Yes, they would work if we could stick to them potentially, but this is the problem. They're not sustainable. We can't stick to them. And then that messes with our head we could have a really good week, then we sit in a meeting, someone brings the crappy sandwiches and crisps out, that's all we have. And now we think that that one thing has ruined everything that we've done this week. And then we go into a self-sabotage pattern. And the women who do well allow themselves some slack so they can roll with those situations and not be completely derailed. Another thing that we are not very good at that we have to learn how to do in this, following on from what I've just said, is learning how to fail and start again. I lost 30 pounds over a 10-month period. I failed hundreds of times. I hated the process. I fell out with it. I cheated. I went off the rails. I went backwards. But what I never did was give up. We've got to learn to be okay with failure and also learn why we're failing. Now, one of the things that I talked about at the beginning was the fact that having weight loss as a goal isn't enough. What do we have to do to get around that? You're probably only listening to this because you want to lose weight, but you can't make the changes. So I've just proven my point that having weight loss as a goal isn't a big enough motivator. And what changed for me was trying to understand. I'm a big journaler, and I recognized that I was sat in this situation where I was watching this weight go on, knowing that it would carry on, and couldn't understand why I couldn't do anything about it. And I was journaling about it, trying to think what's the problem. Journaling for me is about being curious about a situation. And all of a sudden I had this vision of myself being sat on the sofa in 10 years' time, 5 years' time, eating. And I would be eating because I was too scared, too nervous. I was having a bad day, and I was just comforting and consoling myself with food. And suddenly, I hated that version of myself because what I realized in that moment was that I didn't have a problem with my weight, and that was the truth. I could actually accept how my body looked at this heavier weight. But what I really detested with a passion was realizing that I was someone who I thought was a strong, confident person. But here I was, every time I had something that was slightly hard or uncomfortable to do, like get ready for a meeting or fill in my tax return, as soon as I felt any discomfort, I'd be in the kitchen looking for food. That was the turning point for me, where I realized the weight was fine. It was my relationship with food that was the problem. And that's what I wanted to change. And I expanded on that because I realized that if I couldn't push myself out of my comfort zone, and I wasn't, because I was eating every time something felt difficult, that was going to stop me from living my life. And I realized that I wanted mental strength. So my goal was about having mental strength because I knew if I put myself through a diet and a dieting process, a fat loss process, that the work that I would have to do was going to push me out of my comfort zone, which would give me mental strength. That appealed to me all of a sudden. And there was something that came with that because I had started to do some running, get back into running after a long break, and doing a bit of cycling. And what I wanted for my future, because my daughter was getting to like late teens and knew I'd have more time in the future, I wanted to be able to do long rides or runs, like weekends or weeks cycling around. And I was quite heavy on a bike. And if I like doing hills, and the first thing you get when you Google how to get better at hill riding, it says lose weight. So then I had a realization that actually weight didn't have to be about what you look like. Losing weight could be about performance. And if I went through this process, the benefit for me would be I would be a better runner, a better cyclist, and enjoy that more. And that suddenly started to make sense. So now I knew that I wanted to be mentally strong. Now I knew that I wanted to be having these adventures when I was older, and doing this would make me better at it and make that more accessible and more enjoyable. And I hadn't long since lost my dad either. And something that's changed for me when I get into your 50s is you start to really care about, you start to really value the time that you've got. And it might be a bit maudlin, but I don't care because it was true. And me and my dad started running together. So that we did a lot of this. That was a big part of my get journey into exercise. So that was a really important part of our relationship. And when I've been away recently and I'm up hills and walking in amazing landscape, I know that, he'd just love it. And part of what I wanted to do was sort of honoring him because he's not around. He can't do that now. So you sort of live it, doing it for them in a way. Sorry. So you can see though from that how suddenly I found goals that weren't about losing weight that were so powerful and so meaningful to me that they could literally almost reduce me to tears. And then I started to see everything differently. And one of the things that I want to talk about is how you feel. You can, a lot of the things that I talked about before when you're talking about struggling with motivation, our effort, our attention keeps going back onto the food, to our dissatisfaction with our weight, to our dissatisfaction with our body. And we're looking at this all the time. And we think that just when we get to that goal weight, everything will change. And one of the things that I wish I had known sooner was how you really feel when you've achieved that. Okay. Because I did have a tangible weight target, but like I say, the reason was not just for the number. And when I stepped on the scales and I got to that day, I remember thinking, God, that's over. And it wasn't much more than that. It was just relief that I could just stop a diet and go on to what was going to be the next phase of training. And a few days later, it really started to sink in what a massive achievement that had been. Because for 10 months, I had absolutely pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I'd had to be really focused on the discipline and, do hard things, do it when I didn't want to, learn about being humble about what my barriers were, all the things that I talked about at the beginning. Why couldn't I move forward? What was I resisting? I had to work all that out. And suddenly, when you've done that, you think, oh my God, if I can do this, what else can I do? If I can make this massive effort for 10 months, what else can I do now? Because I know I can do hard things now. So your self-confidence suddenly goes through the roof. And I like to use the word capable because I felt strong, I felt powerful, and I felt able to stop thinking about things in my head and actually doing them. And something that had also changed when I got to that point was, all the procrastination, all that friction that you feel where you're unhappy and you don't know what to do about it, and you're unhappy with your diet and you're not making progress and you're having this constant conversation with yourself in your head. Suddenly, when you get there, all of that noise goes out and you've got all this headspace and all this brain power back. And now you don't have to think about losing weight anymore because you've done that. Now you're thinking, what else can I do? What can I do now? So your attention suddenly goes away from, shall I have that snack or not? And oh God, I'm fat, or I'm too heavy, or what all the negative things that you think about yourself. And you're thinking, all right, maybe I should start looking at like researching, cycling events around the UK. And suddenly you're more interested in that because you still have hang-ups about your body if you choose to. Changing your weight doesn't actually make that difference, but you get rid of all that negative self-talk and you start to accept your wrinkles and your sags and your cellulite, and you start to think more about what can I go and do and what can I go and enjoy. And that was massive, that mental space. And the third thing that was a huge benefit was you have to, if you do a weight loss program and start doing exercise, you have to prioritize yourself. You have to eat the food that you need. You have to make time in your schedule to do that exercise and not let anyone get not let get anyone get in the way of that. And that starts you on a journey of actually putting yourself up your priority list. And also that stops becoming just about food and exercise. It starts to be about how you reconnect with yourself and who you are as a person. Because I don't think I was not just me from being 17 when I met my boyfriend that I then married. And the rest of that time you've been bothered about your family and your kids, your home, your career, your relationship. You're a wife, I worked in advertising you're not you because you're too busy doing things for other people or modifying your behavior for other people. But that whole process of being making everything around your needs, you start to tap into what your bigger needs are beyond just what's on your plate. And that's been a hugely transformative thing because I'm starting to feel that I'm more important. I'm more deserving. I deserve to be able to be happy and do what I want and do things that are just for me. And that's really lovely. There are some big lessons that I have learned, which I want to share with you. But what I want to do first of all is just tell you what a menopause motivation plan would be in terms of if you are in a place where I am, where you want to be um, losing weight now. And it's so simple. And I just want to talk about this because it doesn't have to be hard. You want to be working on three nourishing, nutritious meals a day. Each meal has to be based around protein. You want plenty of veg. I weigh for my lunch and my dinner. I don't at breakfast have 250 grams of vegetables, and you can have the carbs that you like. If your meals are between 500 and 700 calories each, you're going to lose weight, and then you can add in a tactical snack of a bar of chocolate, a small bar. I'm not talking about one of them ones that all the kids buy for themselves, or a small pack of crisps, the odd glass of wine. You can go out for meals, but just plan your meal. You're going to be having maybe just one course and make that more protein heavy, and then choose between the wine, the bread basket, a starter, and dessert. Okay, that's how you would think about it. And from an exercise point of view, you want to prioritize strength, and that would be 2 or 3 strength sessions that can be anything from around 30 to 45 minutes a week. And then you're trying to get a daily activity level. Steps are really useful. Not everyone has the ability to do steps, but steps are useful because you know that if you do 5,000 steps a day or 6,000 or 10,000, it's a very easy, tangible way to measure that you just have this low level of activity. It's a consistent feature of your day. Because what happens when you eat slightly fewer calories than your body needs, your body can compensate by doing less. But if you have this baseline of activity built into every day, a walk, a cycle, gardening, some dancing, then you know that you can keep that consistency. So you override the body's sort of instinct to conserve those calories that you're saving through your diet. So that's a good way of doing it. You don't have to worry about cardio. I said I was a runner and a cyclist. I lost my weight. I focused on losing the weight first. So I did my steps, I did my strength training. Sometimes I did a 30-minute run, but I focused on being in a weight loss phase first because when I added in the running and the cycling, I needed a lot more calories. So it's easier to focus on one goal at a time. And you want to prioritize the strength training because when you're in a calorie deficit, your body will lose fat and muscle. But we know from studies that if you add strength training in, then you will lose more fat and less muscle. That's really important for women at this age. So that's how simple your diet and exercise plan needs to be. I eat bread, I eat dairy, I eat sugar, I eat anything I want, basically. But I have got structured meals and I've managed my portion sizes. That's it. That's how simple it is. The things that you want to do now to make these are the lessons that I've learned, and this is instead of focusing on the food all the time, which is why I wanted to just sort of talk about that diet cycle earlier on. You need to be focused on other things now, and that's going to be the thing that's going to make the difference. And these are the lessons that I've learned. You want to automate the food as much as possible because you want to give that less attention. And you're putting more effort into making things happen, getting that consistency right. Okay. That includes meal planning. That includes weighing and measuring out your food, learning how much is 30 grams of protein in each meal, and using weighing scales in your kitchen to make sure you're eating enough. If I have a meal that's not big enough, then my brain starts to say, you've not eaten enough, so now you need a snack. If I know that I'm eating good meals that add up to the right number of calories, I know I've had enough food. And it's easier for me to have those 3 meals a day and that little snack and not go outside of that. The thing you then have to do is work on this discipline around cravings and not giving into them. And that's about learning how to sit with cravings and how to break those habits. That's where you want your attention, because it doesn't matter what diet you do, this is the thing that will come back. Whatever the diet is, you'll be having those little snacks and the cravings and the grazing habits if you don't break them. Journaling was a massive thing for me, and I really recommend that you do that, because what you have to do is you have to learn about yourself. And instead of giving yourself a hard time when you fail, what I started to learn was how to be really empathetic for myself when life feels hard. Most of us can only ever string together a handful of good days before we have a bad sleep, or there's a drama at work, or there's a drama at home, or we have to go somewhere that means we can't do what we planned. So you have to start to learn how to be okay with that and roll with the punches, rather than let those little setbacks set you off spiraling. I had little mantras, okay? I said how mental strength was really important for me, and that was something that I would use all the time. So if I was sort of, I'd had enough food, so I wasn't hungry, and I was having a craving for something, instead of trying to justify whether I should or shouldn't eat it, I would just be able to say, I'm doing this because I want mental strength. The ability to sit through a craving is about giving myself mental strength. And that really helped me. And that I could apply that to workouts. If something felt hard or I didn't feel like doing it, then it was all about mental strength, was doing things when I didn't want to do, or pushing through when it would have been easier to stop. And the journaling process can be really useful to help you work out what your own boundaries are. And that is about you finding out what's right for you. That's so important. You shouldn't be doing what someone else is doing or what you think you're doing. You've got to find your own line. That's exactly what I did. I had to find out what was important for me, what I was prepared to give up. I don't drink. I've got clients who are passionate about wine, and they go on wine tasting holidays and do wine tasting events. They're never going to give up drinking wine. So they have to accept that's their boundary. That's the thing that they are happy to have, but it means they might have to make some concessions elsewhere, but they're okay with that. So we all have to find our own version of this. Useful thing as well is to differentiate between short-term goals and long-term goals. If you do go out for meals, and that's a big part of you, making some compromises or some small sacrifices for when you go out for meals isn't forever. It's just for the time that you want to get to a point where you've reached your goals for the reasons that are important to you. Once you get there, you're free. I had a lovely chat with a client last week who was going on holiday in a couple of weeks, and she said, I keep thinking I've got to be good this week because I'm going away next week, but I don't. And because she's got to that point where she's lost her weight, she's got a really healthy relationship with food, she's got that nice balance, she can eat the snacks, she can go out for the odd meal, she can have desserts, because she's got this structure in place that works for her. And it was just really funny that she could feel that old voice, because she's coming to that time of the year where probably for the last 20 years she's thought she needs to go on a diet for that past few weeks, but she doesn't. So this is that mental piece of just thinking, oh God, this is so easy. I'm eating nice food. I'm happy in my body. I don't have to worry about these things anymore. And playing the long game is really important as well, because as I've said, we have difficult lives now. It's complicated. When we're 20, it's easy. We can just focus in ourselves. Now we've got to navigate menopause, challenging lives. If we play the long game and see it as a journey and learn about ourselves in the process, then that can make it a lot more pleasurable and take that pressure off instant results. And I only saw getting to my weight loss goal was just a door opening onto something else. I could let that sat behind me, and now I focus on running and cycling and what I'm going to do this year, and that's exciting. So, and that's the long game. So if any of you here, thank you for listening to this. I am going to talk about the my little free gift to you as well. And I just want to just tell you very briefly about coaching for anyone who's interested in how coaching works, because coaching is very different to a diet. Yes, I will do the legwork for you. I will create a meal plan. I will create an exercise program. You get access to my app where you'll find your workouts and log your meals. You don't have to count calories. But what makes coaching so different to a diet is that we work really closely together. And I would be helping you break those habits that hold you back, help you find those goals that are really meaningful to you, meaningful for you. And I'm here whenever you need that support and encouragement, whether that's to understand your triggers, how to keep going after setbacks, when you do need to tweak your diet and exercise plan, or how to handle holidays and nights out. And ultimately, our goal together is to get you to a place where you know what you want, you know how to get it, and you have this peaceful relationship with food, and you feel back in the driving seat of your life, and you have all the tools that you need to go it alone. That's what coaching is all about. It's about getting to a happy place with your weight, your health, and your fitness, getting rid of all this noise, and giving you the freedom to go and end that battle and start living your life. So that's what that's about. If any of you want to have a little chat with me and find out more, then let me know. If you do want to take advantage of the free offer, you can, no obligation to do anything with the coaching, that's a separate thing, but you are very welcome to book in a free 20-minute call with me, and I'm going to give you the link for that. And that will be an opportunity for us to have a little chat together, for me to answer any questions that you might have, so that you can just get clear in your mind how you might put a plan together for yourself moving forward. And it will be a really nice opportunity for us to meet and just say hi, so I'm not just talking to myself at a screen. I can talk to a real person every now and again. But I'll put details of that down for you. So thank you very much for listening to this. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.